We are 30 minutes into the U.S. trading day on this Monday, April 15th. Here are the top stories we're following. Shake it off. Stocks rebounding after a bruising two-week sell-off. But geopolitical tensions climb, and JP Morgan warns that the good news is already priced in when it comes to earnings. More on that ahead. Rent the runway. Meanwhile, shares are continuing to skyrocket after blowing past expectations last week. Co-founder and CEO Jennifer Hyman joins to discuss the quarter and the path to positive free cash flow, and mapping the fallout of what a regional war would mean for global trade routes after Iran attacks Israel over the weekend. We'll discuss with Exeter CEO Brandon Daniels in our Wall Street Week Daily segment. I'm Katie Greifeld in New York. Welcome to Bloomberg Markets. You take a look at markets on this Monday morning, and there is green on the screen behind me. The S&P 500 currently higher by about 0.8% after two straight weeks of losses. It's the same thing if you take a look at big tech. The Nasdaq 100 also up about 0.8%, even though you have the likes of Tesla and Apple on the back foot this morning. And interestingly, you take a look at the bond market, and that sell-off is continuing to build momentum. 10-year yields currently up almost 11 basis points. We are talking about a 4.62 handle when it comes to that 10-year Treasury yield. And that's because, of course, we got more eco data this morning, and like we've seen, it was very hot. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but let's talk about one stock we're watching this morning, and that is Goldman Sachs. The bank reporting that revenue beats across the board, and you can see shares are flying right now. For more, we're joined by Bloomberg's Sonali Basak. And Sonali, give us the rundown, Basak. And let's take a deeper dive into these markets. We're going to do that with Ryan Dietrich. He is Carson Group Chief Market Strategist. He's expecting the rest of the S&P 500 and the stock market at large to fare.
Yeah, I mean,
interesting. For weeks, I've been asking, do the fundamentals justify what we're seeing when it comes to the price action, when it comes to the broader index? People have told me yes. And then you have JP Morgan out with a note this morning saying that a lot of the good news when it comes to this upcoming earnings season, it's already been priced in. I mean, is there a risk of disappointing here just because, again, that good news, it's already in the stock market?
Listen,
action. We have seen this rally broadening out. If you take a look at some of the other sectors, would you expect earnings to broaden out in a similar way, or is this really big tech power in corporate America? Conflict here. I mean, how do you think about pricing in geopolitical risk into the U.S. stock market?
Yeah,
so definitely something to monitor. But I mean, when it comes to pricing geopolitical risk, obviously, you know, we're talking about the stock market here, and it seems to sort of be tenuous when it comes to pricing that in. What about other markets? If you are truly concerned, or if you are looking for a haven, does it make sense to think about those worries as it relates to maybe other asset classes?
It does.
Quickly take a look at what's moving underneath these markets right now. We're going to do that with Bloomberg's Bailey Lipschultz. Let's start with Tesla.
Katie, Tesla under.
Well, U.S. retail sales beating March forecasts as consumers keep fueling a surprisingly strong economy. Of course, we're seeing a lot of this reaction come through the bond market with yields up sharply. Let's keep the conversation going now with Ryan Dietrich. He is Carson Group Chief Market. Does the Fed really need to cut it all? What's your answer? Yeah. How much do these smaller companies, these mid-sized companies, really need rates to come down? Yeah. Just below 17 at this moment. How are you thinking about volatility in this market? Because it's been dormant for a while. Bond market volatility has definitely been seeing quite an updraft there. Do you expect that to translate into the equity market?
Yeah.
You soon. Our thanks, of course, to Ryan Dietrich. He is Carson Group Chief Market Strategist. Now, still ahead, we'll take a look at the companies making the time now for Social Climbers. A look at the stocks making waves on social media this morning. And first up, Adidas getting a step ahead with a double upgrade over at Morgan Stanley. The German shoe giant was raised 2 notches to overweight from underweight. And the analysts say that the sports gear maker is seeing a lot of top-line momentum thanks to its lifestyle shoes and a signature basketball sneaker from NBA player Anthony Edwards. Next up, Roku says about 576,000 accounts compromised in a cyber attack. It is the second security breach for the streaming service this year. The company said that the hackers did not gain access to any sensitive information like full credit card payments or other details. Finally, Alcoa making the social rounds after the U.S. and U.K. imposed new restrictions on trading Russian aluminum, copper, and nickel. And of course, you can follow all the latest company buzz on TREN Go on your Bloomberg terminal. Now coming up, Rent the Runway rocking the catwalk after reporting a stellar fourth quarter. Jennifer Hine. All right, we are about an hour into the U.S. trading day, so let's get a check on these markets with Abigail Doolittle. Doolittle, thank you so much. And let's keep the good news going and talk about Rent the Runway. It's trying to weave elegance with intelligence, and investors are really liking the results. By this result, I think that's fair to say when you take a look at what shares have done. Let's talk about what went right. What was the biggest change between this report and your previous quarter's report? Projection definitely caught people's attention, but you touched on something that I've been wondering about. When you think about the surprise and what we're seeing in the shares, how much of what you're seeing is a change in terms of Rent the Runway's personal, decision makings bearing fruit versus just the environment picking up, people returning to the office and needing nice clothes again? How much inventory at this point?
I would rather
that Rent the Runway would be sort of a gateway to exposure to brands that maybe you otherwise wouldn't shop for. I do want to talk about, of course, the economic environment that you're operating in. Higher for longer interest rates, the Fed funds rates healthily above 5% right now. Talk to me about the health of your balance sheet. I understand, of course, you have debt coming due in the next 3 years or so. So Rent the Runway CEO. Now coming up, we'll discuss how the Iranian attacks over the weekend. Well, it's time now for our daily Wall Street Week conversation. And today, we're focusing on the turmoil in the Middle East. On Saturday, Iran seized an Israel-linked container ship near the Strait of Hormuz. It's the latest in a series of attacks between the two countries. And here with more insight into how this impacts global supply chains is Brandon Daniels, Exeger CEO. Their permanent risk factors going forward. Brandon, really appreciate your time. That is Brandon Daniels. He is the CEO of Exeger. And David, who else do we have coming up this week?
Well, tomorrow we're going to shift gears, actually, and talk about the media again. We've got...
Look forward to there. Our thanks, of course, to David Weston. This is Bloomberg. Well, Donald Trump today becomes the first former U.S. president to face a criminal trial. The Republican presidential hopeful is accused of falsifying business documents to cover up hush money payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels. Bloomberg's Kaylee Lines is outside the Manhattan criminal court for us. And Kaylee, it's not necessarily the hush money, it's the covering up that's the problem here. Boys, of course, she'll be covering the trial all day for Bloomberg News. But before we go, let's take a quick look at Goldman Sachs because the bank stock is up over 14%, or actually 3% for Bloomberg Markets. I'm Katie Greifeld, and this is Bloomberg.